Okay, here we are at the end of the second week of Daf Yomi. Baruch Hashem, we're up to Daf Tez Zayin. So let's do a review of the Simanim we did from Daf Yud until Daf Tez Zayin. And I'm going to ask you some questions about where things are from anywhere from Daf Beis all the way up from Daf Tez Zayin. Okay, here goes. So Daf Yud is a tent. 10 is tent. We have Bruria and Rabbi Meir discussing what to do with their boorish neighbors next door. And we also have Chizkiyahu HaMelech and Yeshayahu and Navi, wondering who should visit whom, or feeling they should be the one to be visited by the other, and then the other midrashim or chazal about Chizkiyahu HaMelech and Amud Beis. Daf Yud Aleph is the 11 is heaven, so we have the people lying down. That's Malchus Beis Shem Beis Hillel. In terms of, is there a required position to be in for saying Shema, or if so, what is it? And then by the end of the path, all the way up to Shemaim, you see the great light, which is Yotzer Or, and Berachos Perek, and Or versus Noga, perhaps the Lashon should change, as well as Berachos HaTorah, the Sefer Torah at the very end, that's Berachos HaTorah. Then we have Daf Yud Beis, is a dozen eggs in a carton. So you have the Seres HaDibros at one end, a little pair there, in terms of being recited in the Beis HaMikdash right before Shema. We have the Indian of, you go by the beginning of a bracha, or the chasim of a bracha, brought out by the case of the wine and the beer, making a mistake on what you were drinking, and then we have the Indian of Balak. Parshas Balak was a consideration for being included in Kriya Shema and why that was so. Then we have Daf Yud Gimel. Yud Gimel is 13 in Bar Mitzvah, of course, and you have the Bacher watched as he's saying Shema by his siblings Avram, Yaakov, and Sarah, and we have the whole Indian of should the names be changed, or can you refer, to their previous names? Is it right, wrong? And then we also get into the issue of Kavanah, as he struggles to have Kavanah, saying Shema from the first time from the Amud, the Kavanah by Shema, as we enter the second Perek. Daf Yud Daled is that Bar Mitzvah Bacher, and Rebbe's passing by, so he's waving with his hands, and the question is, should he be waving to whom? So that we have the Bein HaPrakim issues of Shema, and when you should make a Yapsaka. And you have also the issue, as he's doing that, he's messing up the Parshios, the Seder Parshios. So we have the different Pshatim. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai of the Mishnah tells us the reason for the Seder, but we also have Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai gives a different or additional reason behind that. Daf Tez Vav is fruits. So of course we think of bananas, Tu B'Shvat bananas, which we talked about on the Simon in the post there. So we have the whole Indian, should you have a requirement to hear yourself saying the Shema, and they're dripping with water, because we have at the very beginning of that daf the idea that if you're Mikabel Omach Hashemayim, one of the things you have to do is you have to wash, amongst other things, relieve yourself, and then put on tefillin, say the Shema, and daven, and so on. It's Mikabel Omach Hashemayim. Today's daf, Tez Zayin, I posted the simon for it, but tribute Tez Zayin sounds like toes. Of course, you wear shoes on your toes, so we're going to go with the shoes, and we'll just call them Tizzy shoes, a brand of shoes called Tizzy shoes. And we have our simon of the Chassan at his chasna on the dance floor, sitting in a chair with his shiny black shoes sparkling away as the workmen are getting on their boots, and they're climbing up the tree, doing shtick in a tree in front of the chassan. And you have the avadim walking around shoeless, serving the different foods platter to the guests at the chassan. So we have the issue of a chassan and the umnim workers saying Shema, and also the whole sugya of Rabbi Gamliel, who was makabel tanchumim for Tavi Avdo, as well as in that mission we have the case of him washing the night of his wife's, after his wife's patira. Okay, great. Now let me ask you some questions from Daf Beis all the way from Daf Tez Zayin. Here goes. Okay, so where do we have the topic of Kadosh Baruch Hu being mispalel? Where do you find that in brachas? That's on Daf Zayin. Good. Where do we have the idea that Shnai Mikvecha Targum? What daf was that on? That's on Daf Ches. Great. Where do we have the idea that David Melch was woken up by a kinor, and the whole issue of him waking up, what he did during the night? That's on Daf Gimel. Where do we have the Inyan of Yisurin, people suffering? That's on Daf Hey. Good. And then we have, just thought about related to that, talking about Yisrael and Tzadik V'Ralo. Where was that discussed? That was on Daf Zayin. Good. Where do we have the idea of the Seder Bracha, the Seder of the Parshas of Shema? Why they're in the Seder, the first, second, third Parsha? Why they're in that Seder? That's on Daf Yud Daled. Good. Where do we have Kriya Shema Al Mita. That's on Daf Hey. Right? Did I say Yisron was Hey? It's on Daf Hey. Right? Yisron is Hey. Where do we have the topic of Kriya Shema Shel Shachris, that it's Bein Tchelos L'Lavan, the whole Mishnah, when do you have to start saying Shema and so on in the morning? That's on Daf Tes. Good. Where do we have the inyan of Kavana by Shema? What Kavana is required? Where is required? Which psukim is required? That's on Daf Yud Gimel. Good. Where do we have the idea that the importance of being in shul, davening in shul, and Hashem wanting to know where you are if you're not there that day? That's on Daf Vav. Good. Where do we have the topic of Mishmaros? Rabbi Elazar, the idea that why he mentions Mishmaros as opposed to just give the hour time frame. That's on Daf Gimel. Good. Where do we have the idea that a chassan is being patra from Kriya Shema, whether he should say, whether he has the right to say Kriya Shema the night of his chassan and so on, and until when? That's on Daf Tazayin, shoes, right? Where do we have the inyan of Parshas Balak as if possibly being included in Kriya Shema? That's on Daf Yud Beis. Great. Where do we have Matzi Shematzah Tov? That's on Daf Ches. Where do we have the idea of the Chum Yisrael Ad Chatzos? Where was that? That's on Daf Dalet. Good. And where do we have one more? Let's see, Birchas HaTorah. Where do we have Birchas HaTorah? That's on Daf Yud Aleph. Great. Okay, we've done a lot of Simanim. And Mitzvah, I hope you're finding them not so cumbersome. We're doing one a day, so you should be finding the pace pretty easy. And in fact, I'm getting feedback that people are finding it remarkably easy and they're remembering lots. So that's great. But by all means, let me know how it's going. You can always email me, agoldhar@goldhar.com. Do a great review. Try to get your Simanim now in under 2 minutes. That's a great pace. And 2 minutes for 15 daf, that means we'll be able to chazer Maseches Berachos by Simanim in, roughly 8 minutes, which is pretty good. For an entire Masechta just to keep fresh, 8 minutes. We could master a lot, Mr. Hashem. So, Avram Goldar wishing you a great Shabbos.